As entrepreneurs, many of us have this deep passion to teach what we know. And maybe even along the way, we've learned a few lessons, had some failures that turned into big breakthroughs, and we get this deep desire to share it. Maybe it's through mentoring, maybe through doing workshops and events. But, I know there's a lot of people that are maybe just holding themselves back, a little bit of a gap in how you teach. So I wanted to introduce you to an I've gotten to know recently. I just love this woman, and I'll introduce her in just a minute. But first, let me tell you that I like to help you learn how to make your business perform better, and in the process, how to help you be a better entrepreneur and business owner so that you really love the work that you're doing. To me, it's like we all want to get bigger, we all want to achieve more, we all want to experience more. Sometimes it's about the challenge, but sometimes it's just about having more fun in our business. And today, I feel like our guest is going to help us really tap into that quite a bit. Let me introduce you to Jen Louden. Now, Jen is a personal growth pioneer. I love that, personal growth pioneer.
Better than old.
Such a great title. But she's helped launch the self-care movement with her first book, The Woman's Comfort Book, which I absolutely loved. It was one of my favorite books. And she's since authored 5 additional books on well-being and whole living, including The Life Organizer, that has inspired more than 1 million women in 9 languages. But more importantly, she's just an amazing person who has this extraordinary passion for helping into that skill of teaching and be the most effective, most powerful, and most poignant teachers that we can be. So Jen, thanks for coming today to teach something. But oh my God, there's so many people that are the worst teachers on the planet. It's like, oh, this could be so much better. So I'm curious, what was the spark to bring this movement around teaching into the world that you were starting with self-care?
Well, it was about 6 years ago, and I was at the very last of a brain trust group that I've been part of for many years. And one of the men in the retreat is one of my teachers, one of my spiritual teachers, as well as one of my friends. And I'd been watching him dragging his feet about stepping more fully into his teaching. Now, by that, I mean really owning it. He was teaching all the time. He's very, very successful in many realms. And I heard come out of my mouth, as we entrepreneurs do with our ideas, I think I want to support teachers in owning their teaching. So I got together with someone else, Michelle Christensen, who's also in my brain trust, and we co-created a course, which now I lead alone, but her ideas are in there with me, about teaching and about the inner work as well as the outer work, because they're so intricately related. I think just like being self-employed, you can't have a successful business if you're not doing the inner work.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you said that, by the way. Yeah, my whole life is about the inner work, so I totally relate to that.
Me too. Although sometimes I wish it could just be about the outer work.
Yes, me too. It would be so much easier, wouldn't it?
Exactly. I rip my earbuds out of my ears.
That's when you know you got to a good thought, is when you're ripping microphones out. So it was like one of those, we might even say like those divinely inspired moments, like you just kind of got, this was the next evolution.
I think we could say that, but we could also say it came out of my own suffering and seeing that suffering reflected in someone who I respect so much. And that's where so much of our teaching does come out of. So by suffering, my first book, The Woman's Comfort Book, was published. It became a bestseller by word of mouth. And I was literally called, as in the phone rang, to teach, to give keynotes, to teach at Omega, to do these things that I had no idea how to do and no inner belief that I could. But because I'm a little fire starter, I'm like, okay. And then I would show up, and sometimes it would work and sometimes it wouldn't. But inside, I would be dying. And every time I ended a speech or a retreat or a workshop, I'd be like, that's it. I'm never doing it again. I suck. I didn't help every single person perfectly, and therefore I should quit. So Teach Now really addresses that deep wish that I how to do it and how to address those feelings of it's never going to be perfect. And yes, you must own what you know and what you've learned.
To spark his awareness that he was not owning his teaching. But how might somebody know if they're in that space? Like, what are some of the things you might be feeling or thinking or experiencing if you're maybe not fully stepping up into being the teacher or the coach or the mentor, whatever you call it? But, how do we know?
Well, I have this deep love of the word teacher. So I like to say to people, does that word push your buttons? Does it make you go, oh, no, that means I have to know it all, or I have to be perfect, or I have to know everything about my subject. I have to be the sage on the stage. That's not what it means. What it means is owning what you do know and being willing to step into it. So the first thing I do is I get curious, like, okay, is that word freaking you out? Let's talk about that. Sometimes it's just because you have a mentality that to be a teacher means you're going to have to be poor. And look, in the days of the internet, that's no longer true. What is Melanie doing with these teaching? Right? What are you doing with your business? You're a teacher. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, are you always thinking that you need to learn just one more thing? Or certification, get one more stamp of approval before you're ready to share. So that's another shift. What you were talking about, whatever words you want to use, if teaching is pushing your buttons, from really sharing what's so close to your heart. So are you kind of taking a left turn and doing over here? Maybe you teach business development. What you really want to teach, I don't know, maybe it's knitting. So those are three places that we look at. And then do you fourth thing, one more, do you hedge yourself behind what other people say and teach their programs? Like, oh, I'm a certified blah, blah, blah facilitator versus I'm inspired by or I've trained with, but this is my own work too.
Yeah, that's actually a great distinction. And I know not everybody's comfortable in their own voice with their own message, or maybe they haven't cultivated it yet. So there is sometimes a place where we start, but eventually you do really have to own your teaching and who you are and how you want to get it out there in the world.
And the reason why is because when you do that, you bring something that only you can bring. So if you're still going to do it within, I teach the Daring Greatly, Brené's work, or I teach, it's fine. But are you bringing your full uniqueness to that container? That's what I want to help you do.
So I guess you had to do this first yourself, right? Like you kind of had out
20 years.
So in your own journey, like what are a couple things that worked for you to really, up your game here? And by the way, I just want to say I totally, completely relate to this because I was not the kind of person that was comfortable teaching or, every step of the way as I've evolved, I've had to figure out how to be the person who can confidently and courageously step into that journey and teach it on some level. And I have this running joke that, God put me on this planet to get everything messed up and do it all bad so I can figure out how to do it right and then teach it. I don't know that I love that, but I guess that's what some of us are here to do it that way. So you can relate.
I can relate. I think many of us can relate. So I think for me, one of the biggest lessons that I probably only got, I'm still getting, okay, let's be honest, I'm still getting, is over providing for my students. So when I first started leading writing retreats, I lead a writing retreat that fills up in an hour in Taos. I do 2 back-to-back every year. And when I first started doing those, I would be the bell person. I would take people's luggage to their rooms. I was so over providing. And I thought that was how a teacher did. You smothered everybody with love and, how awful. Because, first of all, then it didn't leave me enough energy to really show up as a teacher. Yeah. But second of all, it's not an authority place. It's not a place of saying, look, I'm here and I believe in what I have to offer. Third, I think what it did was it led me to think I needed everybody to love me. When we want our students and clients to love us, we're screwed. I'm sorry, but we are, because then we can't say the difficult things. We aren't willing to look at what they're not getting and help them get it. Instead, we want to try to spoon feed it to them like we would if we were helicopter parenting. So I stopped helicopter teaching. That was huge for me.
There's so many things you just brought up that I want to go 7 different directions, but I think really what is so significant right here is recognizing that we all have these filters that we see our capability through. Mm-hmm. And those filters are either empowering us to be more capable, more effective, and have a greater impact, or they're limiting us. If somebody's limiting themselves, what's the first thing they need to do to really recognize that, to start, or maybe it's better to say stop constricting themselves?
Well, I'm a big pattern person. So I would look at what are the patterns that keep coming up for you when you're teaching? They're very hard to see. It's usually going to take someone outside of you, a friend or a trusted coach.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a big deal. They're really obvious to other people. That's where my brain trust, my mastermind group of peers comes in. We point out to each other, and maybe doing it for me means not charging enough. Or it means charging a good, fair amount by my values, but adding in a whole bunch of extras. Or it's starting to know what your patterns are, and then how are you going to keep catching yourself in them, and knowing that you're not going to lose them overnight. I still over provide, but now I drill it into my team to stop me, to question me, to push back, and my husband and the brain trust. So I have some stop gaps, some tripwires. So what are your patterns?
Yeah, and people that are going to hold you at a higher level of capability, whether or not you can see it for yourself. I mean, and that's the most brilliant thing of having a coach or mentor who gets that, is that many of us are really slippery. We can rationalize why we're doing it the way we're doing it. I think the more evolved we are, the slipperier we get, right? It's like we're really good at justifying everything.
It is. But don't you see? You don't understand. That's one of my favorites. Exactly. You just don't understand.
It's not.
Put some gloss on it.
Yeah, a little spin. So, this is fascinating to me. The idea of teaching has so many different layers. Would you help us understand a little bit more when you're working with someone? Elements like pricing and packaging? Is it who they're being? Is it a combination of both? Like, what's the blueprint look like, if you will, or maybe the roadmap, whatever you want to call it, that allows somebody to really step up their game in this part of their genius?
Well, you'll love this. We start with the inner work and teach now. And for some people, that's very easy, and they don't have a lot to work through. Usually, though, I find the people who think it's going to be a load of bull really get the most out of it. And through some exercises and ideas that we lead them through. Then we start talking about curriculum design. Really overwhelming. It's a gigantic subject. You can get a PhD in it, literally. But I just try to break it down the same way I would the creative process of writing a book. For example, a few ideas. The beginning is not the beginning. Don't try to begin at the beginning of your course or your narrative arc of your class or your retreat, but start throwing things in. I use Evernote. You can use index cards, any kind of program or physical means that allows you to have discrete chunks. This will be an exercise. This is a piece I want to lecture about. This is supplies that I want. And then you can begin to think about it. Where do I want people to start, and where do I want them to possibly end up? I can't control that they will end up there. That would be over-providing and helicopter teaching. But I can do different things for different learners to move them through this arc, to give them a chance and a possibility to be able to see or do these things differently. Then we move into marketing and pricing. Now, of course, that is also something you can get a PhD in. So we just touch on it from a teaching point of view. How can you market as a teacher? How can you market through teaching, which is also sometimes called content marketing?
Yes. Yeah. And, that brings up a good point. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking while you're talking, designed to whatever you're teaching, how does it sell? So whether you're doing a webinar that's free, or you're doing a mastermind or an event that sells a mastermind, all these things that continually sell people to the next level. What's your take on that in terms of how you help people really step up into being a teacher?
Well, I have some discomfort with there always being a next level we're selling people to. In fact, so much discomfort that I turned away from it and got kind of too judgmental about it. But there really were some very manipulative techniques out there. I don't know if they still are, but when I heard a story,
they haven't gone away.
When I heard a story of one coach applauding, getting everyone up on their feet to applaud because somebody was going to liquidate their retirement account to join her platinum level program, I wanted to puke. So I think what's important is that whatever you're teaching, whether it's the 1-hour webinar or the live event, that it has so much quality and so much worth, and that you offer people another step for you, but you do it in a way that has great integrity, that it's not, you must decide now before you leave, or you won't get the special price. To give them time to decide, you help them decide. You don't, but you give them space and time, that you do it in integrity. That said, one of the things I do teach and teach now is one of the mistakes that beginning teachers make is trying to give everybody the entire pony show and the circus, and then they don't come back for more because you've totally saturated them. So it's okay to leave people hungry, but not starving and not feeling like they're going to miss out on the best thing that's going to save them, because baby, nobody needs to be saved and nobody is going to save you.
Yeah, and that's well said. And I think there's a lot of different personalities and styles out there, and there's a range of ways that people learn and grow. I personally think if you're not giving people next steps, either you're holding yourself back because you're uncomfortable, or you're missing an opportunity to continue to help that person expand and grow.
Yeah.
And I got called on the table my very first event. I had clients come up to me like, how come you don't have anything else for us to do? And I was like, oh. Mm-hmm. I thought this was the thing.
Right.
And I realized in that moment, wow, they wanted to go deeper with me, and I didn't have a way to take them there because of my own resistance and uncomfortableness. It was a huge healing moment for me.
Yeah, I think we have to be really careful and mindful about it. So for me, for instance, in Taos, when I do my writers retreats, I don't offer any follow-up program. I create a sacred space, and it's very important to me. It would feel absolutely wrong to sell to them in that space. Do I make a follow-up offer on email for writing coaching and a writing group? Sometimes that feels right. Sometimes it doesn't. So I think we have to be doing our inner work so we know what's true for us in the offer we're making. I can totally agree with what you're saying, though, for myself at times too.
Yeah, and again, it's very personal. I think when you're a teacher, this is a very personal methodology. You really, truly have to do the inner work to really allow yourself to give the best of your gift to the world, whatever that looks like for you. So I'm curious, in this evolution of Jen as teacher and self-care expert and somebody who is creating sacred space for people, what's been one of your greatest challenges?
Taking myself seriously. Years ago, I was lucky enough to be on Oprah. And when I walked off her stage, I started a very dark night of my soul. And it took me years to figure out why. And it was because I was hoping that Oprah was somehow going to anoint me and say, Jennifer, you are good enough. And Melanie, I had published 4 books. I had hundreds of thousands of copies already in print. I had been doing it for like 8 or 10 years before she had me on. I was not, in my 20s. I was not my first rodeo, as we say. But I hadn't learned to validate myself. And I'm always learning to validate myself. I had to go through it again this weekend because I finished a big project and it's all going really well, but I found myself really down. And it wasn't until I realized I hadn't put my arms around myself and said, I see you. I see what you did. I take it in just like I would take in a hug from you. Not because makes me special or important, but because I did it and I see it and I can take it in. So that's always my
talk about, but we're all facing. I know so many brilliant people who that self-validation is missing, and we're looking at outside, and so we're always going to feel as if we're not good enough because we're never going to get that kind of validation outside ourselves. That's been one of my biggest growth areas too.
It doesn't last if we do get it, right? If you said to me, the planet, I love every word you write, I love every word you say, I could probably get on that for about 45 minutes, and then it'd be gone.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in your business evolution, what has been the thing that, like, if we took a look at the tangible, rational side of running a business, like the details of making a business work well, what have you had to really get good at to be successful in business?
Making requests and asking for support and having the support people who really can hear me and do those jobs. So I had a beautiful VA who remains one of my dearest friends. She helped me get dressed for my wedding, year before last. But after a number of years, she wasn't the right person anymore. And I kept trying to make her the right person because I loved her and I trusted her. Not because she needed the work. She had plenty of work. Right. But because I couldn't see outside the box of I can have somebody else. And then finally, thank God, she gave me notice. And she gave me notice. She said, I can't do this for you. I'm not who you need. And I had to replace her with 2 people who have really helped me. I think I grossed the most money last year. I think I grossed about $325 in 2014. And that's more. And I'm partly because I'm not doing the things that I shouldn't be doing. And because I can say to someone, go do social media for this. And I don't have to think about it.
So is that about letting go? Is that about
No.
recognizing where you're needing to focus your time and energy? Is it about allowing yourself to be supported?
It's
Yes.
about
Okay.
it's about being willing to ask for what I want. It's very vulnerable for me for whatever reason to say, I want this. I want to create this. Can you go do this? I have no problem delegating. I have no problem trusting people. I have no problem relaxing. I have problems owning my desires and being supported and seen in them to manifest them, which is hysterical when you think about how much I've done, but I bootstrapped most of it.
So what shifted? What allowed you to be able to do that better?
Well, part of it I think was being forced when Deb said she was giving me notice. Then part of it was the constant work of an entrepreneur to look at your blind spot and go, what am I going to do about it? And not what am I going to do about it airy-fairy. What am I going to do about it really practical? How do I really write a job description? How do I really interview somebody? How instead of what I used to do, which is, oh, so-and-so liked them. So that must mean they're going to work for me. Oh, no, don't do that. Oh, wait, actually call someone's references. Oh, wait, when they show me who they are, actually fire them instead of waiting. Because I'd always hired out extra help for Deb, but most of it had been a nightmare. So I'd really created a story, partially through that's what happens when we hire people. There's a lot of people who aren't a good fit, but partially through my own murkiness.
Right.
Yeah. So I worked on it.
I love that. And by the way, I would say 80% of the people that I interview, talk to, coach, mentor, have as friends who are at our level or higher. This is the single greatest thing we have to tackle, is learning how to really allow ourselves to be supported, whatever our filter is around it. Because some people it's about letting go, control. Some people it's about how do I take the financial leap. And some people it's really about allowing ourselves to be supported and asking for what we need, whatever the genre is. This is the edge. It's like the game changer. It's this rich, like little space that when we get how to allow others to take us to the next level, we become unstoppable. And it's really the key to exponential growth in my mind.
Well, yeah, because you can't do it yourself. You can't. I mean, and especially I'm dyslexic, so you let me anywhere near code or numbers, dates, phone numbers. I mean, I'm going to screw it up. But then you're also like doing all kinds of monkey work that, that is so detail oriented. I'm terrible at details. So many reasons why learning to really interview people and really hold out. In some ways, falling in love at 45 and getting married at 50 helped prepare me for this too, because I was really willing to ask for what I wanted there.
Yeah, so we could take something we did in another area and apply it to the one we can't quite master on our own. It's like, okay, if I could do it there, I'm smart. I could figure this.
Exactly.
I love it. Jen, do you have a quote or some type of a really sage piece of advice or wisdom that allows you to kind of get back on track if you feel out of sorts?
I have a phrase, compassionate grit. And one day, I think it was in yoga, and I don't know, maybe meditation, and I thought, grit without compassion is just grind. I ground myself down in the past till I had adrenal problems from not getting the support, not making the hard choices. And there's space for everything and love for everything, then you can stick with the hard work. And I'll give you an example. So in the fall of last year, I launched for the second time a program called Life Navigation. And it wasn't going very well. And it wasn't feeling like it had the first time. And I realized that the page wasn't converting. And I wanted to just throw up my hands. Oh, well, enough of that. Or I don't know, probably do something, grindy. And instead I really sat back and had compassion. And then I dug in and I interviewed past participants and I rewrote the page with better testimonials and I did case studies and I really did the hard work, but from that compassionate, soft, loving place. And then it filled like crazy.
I love that.
Oh.
What a really cool, kind of like a reboot of how to move through something, because we've all faced that when something isn't working the way we think we're going to, and it's like work harder, just drive. But really, that's grace. When I say grace and ease, that's grace.
It is. But and still was doing hard work and working long hours, but it wasn't in that grindy or that victim place. Those are the two kind of defaults for me. Grind it out, or, oh, I can't do it. Oh, never mind.
Another one of those great points where she flings the microphone. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But that is such a great insight into how it could look.
Yeah.
And to really give us something to look at in our own way of moving through challenges or things not working right. It's like, how are you choosing to move through it, and what's your
which would have been just abandoning the program or running it with 40 people instead of 140. Oh.
Yeah, I like that. Juicy stuff. So I want to go into your program, the Teach Now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know you offer it from time to time, and there's one coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a little bit about what Teach Now is and how it's going to work, and if somebody wanted to explore that with you, how they could find out more about it?
Well, the information is at a special website, theteacherspath.com, theteacherspath.com. And it's 5 pre-recorded modules of audio classes. And then in between, so there's a week for you to digest that hour and some very pointed homework, no busy work. And then there is a week where you're live with me and a guest. And we take your questions around that module, but maybe whatever else is cooking for you. And then the piece de resistance is there's 50 master teacher interviews, anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes, nicely edited, with everybody from people you've never heard of to people as famous as Elizabeth Lesser and Mark Nepo, and I always forget all the great people who are in there. I should have their names in front of me.
There's 50 of them.
Yeah, there's 50 of them. And what is amazing, Natalie Goldberg, and they talk about their evolution of teaching. They talk about how they handle difficult students. They talked about sometimes how they did marketing, sometimes not, but whole range of issues from a really personal point of view. So the whole thing is just an absolute feast to help you educate yourself and shift into a more powerful position, whether that's teaching with less suffering or less over-providing or making more money. We talk a lot about not reinventing the wheel and how you need to keep making the same offers over and over again and how difficult that can be, and just really smart, neat people gather once a year for it. A really wide range of people, everyone from acting and singing teachers to math teachers to professors to people who are just starting out. Last time we had a shaman, a Buddhist meditation teacher, drawing teacher, all kinds of people.
It sounds really fascinating. And so the end game is to be able to come out of the program and have the clarity of how to really take their teaching to the next level.
Yeah.
And master it, or feel confident with it, courageous.
I think all of those things. I'm thinking of one great gal. Her name is Cass Hall. She's from Australia, I believe. And she took the course last year because she had a book coming out, and she was going to do a U.S. book tour with a lot of teaching. She's a Zen doodle artist, Zen Tangle artist. And she has had a lot of success, but she was scared and didn't think she could really own it, and she wasn't enjoying her teaching. This is so true for so many people. They either don't let themselves teach because their parents told them, don't you do that, that will be poor, or they are teaching but they're not enjoying it, so they're not growing. They're not having the freedom and the energy. And she wrote me a letter after her book tour. It was the most glowing, beautiful thing about what Teach Now did for her to enable her to really enjoy and flourish on that tour. And she got so much feedback from people saying, you're one of the best teachers I've ever had. So that's one of my favorite stories.
I love that. That's so cool. Well, we're sharing the URL here on the video. It's also on the show page. And, if you are teaching something, I recommend that you make the commitment to do the inner work and discover what might be missing on the outside, the skill, the strategy, the practical, the packaging, whatever that is. But make a commitment this year to really up your game, really be able to become more masterful at what you're doing. It's not just because it makes us feel better. It's the way to become more attractive and magnetic to the people that you serve. Like people, when you serve from that place of really owning your stuff, owning who you are, owning what your gift is, they want you. Would you agree? Like they really it makes you so much more dynamic and juicy to them. Personally, I know in my own life, like when I haven't really been owning something, I'm not very juicy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very magnetic. And it's just easy for people to go, something doesn't feel right. And it's not clicking for them.
Yeah, I think when I'm not in that place, then it's hard for me to write and talk about things with clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Totally.
that's what people hear. And sometimes that's just because it's the first time you're offering something. Like I offered a program earlier this year for the first time, and it took a while to get clear. I knew it in my heart what it was and how exciting it was, but to actually language it and be able to speak about it clearly. But if it persists past that beginning stages, then I often think there's something that I'm not seeing or being willing to see. And I think we have a fear that we're going to be a tall poppy, as they say in Australia, right? That something bad's going to happen to us if we own our authority. But I find the exact opposite happens. Our ability to honor other people, to continue to learn and to have compassion, and really be a voice for change in the world. I think that is what gets fed and increased when we own our authority.
Love it. Well, Jen, thank you so much. I'm leaving this very inspired today. It's like making me want to even pull more out and really look at that teacher part of me. But you just have such an eloquent and gorgeous way of saying things.
Oh, thank you.
I love that. It's quite a gift.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and as you're listening in today as our guest, I'd love to hear what sparked for you. Do you see yourself as a teacher? And do you see wanting to become a better teacher or a more confident teacher? Or do you maybe see where you've been holding yourself back? Come share it on the page here. If you're listening to us on the blog, it's melaniebensonstrick.com. Share it on the comment section below. But if you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher Radio or one of our other sites, love to have you come over to the blog on melaniebensonstrick.com and let us know, what are you taking away from today? I know just really putting it into words and making a commitment that this is the thing you're going to take out of this call can be the first step towards becoming a more courageous, more powerful teacher. So we'll see you guys all again next week. Thanks again, Jen.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.